their FedRAMP progress that they announced today, that they are now designated as in progress. Before I begin, let me remind you that I am not a financial advisor or a financial professional of any sort. All opinions that I express in this video are mine and do not represent those of any company or any other individual. I currently hold a long position in Knightscope, so basically this video should be for your entertainment purposes only, because I could be wrong about everything I say in this video. You need to do your own research before making any investment decisions. So, if you followed the stock at all today, you may have noticed that Knightscope was up 24% on the day. That was pretty good. And this was due in large part, I believe, to the announcement today that Knightscope achieves an in-process rating in their pursuing of the going through the FedRAMP process. And I'm going to talk today about what that means. But here's the announcement that they released today, if you saw that. And they are pursuing what's called an authority to operate, which, if I understand correctly, is going to give them the ability to actually provide services to federal government agencies so that they are meet the qualifications as a cloud service provider. And I'm going to go in a little more detail here. I did a fair bit of research on this for a prior video and then didn't really include too much of it. But to trying to learn about the FedRAMP process and what this means, because Knightscope themselves has actually called this out multiple times that this is a big deal for them, that they are working towards this because it's going to unlock the market of the federal government and allow them to actually do business there, because this is a necessary hurdle that must be hurdled, that they have to go through in order to be able to do business with the government. This is sort of a standard they have to meet. And so their announcement today was that they have achieved this in-process designation as part of the FedRAMP process. And I can't recall if they had, yeah, so they have a little more verbiage in here about it, but I'm going to go more into more details of what this really means for them. And by the way, that's a great picture of the Knightscope robot with the fountain, the flag, and the building in the background, the nice monument. That's fantastic. So, what is this in-process designation? Well, there are three designations for cloud service providers, and really for cloud service offerings is a technical term because they're making the differentiation between a particular offering that a provider offers. So a provider could have multiple offerings, and each one of those could go through their own assessment for security. Maybe I should talk just for a second about what FedRAMP is, and I think they did spell it out up here. It is the Federal Risk and Authorization Management Program, and it is what they say right here, that it promotes the adoption of secure cloud services across the government because it provides a standardized approach to security assessment, authorization, and continuous monitoring. So what that means is the federal government at some point said, hey, we are going, this is my interpretation. So, again, it could be wrong, not a financial professional, not a security professional, but the federal government at some point said, we see a lot of need for the government to adopt cloud services because we're not going to always run our own data centers and run all of our own software on our own servers. So we're going to have some cloud stuff. And somebody decided that instead of every single government agency that wants to contract with a cloud provider of some sort to provide cloud software, we are going to set some standards for the entire federal government to follow. And then each agency is going to have to go through the same process in order to do this. And this is going to make it easier because each agency already has guidelines for what their vendors have to meet in terms of security. And it also allows the standards, when the standards have been proven to be met for one agency, another agency, if they want to use that same service, can just reuse that same security assessment and all of the work that was already done to prove that that vendor meets that minimum security bar, that the other agency can just basically copy and use that same exact assessment and now be able to use that cloud service. So that is my understanding of sort of the principles behind the FedRAMP process. And so this is what Knightscope is going through right now. And there are three designations for a cloud service provider, or really for an offering from a cloud service provider within the FedRAMP process. There is being ready, there's being in process, and then there's being authorized. And the authorized is pretty straightforward. That's when they have actually met the bar and they are authorized to provide the service to the government. These other two are not completely obvious if you just look at the names, but ready sounds like they like, hey, just hit the button on somewhere and said, hey, please start us in this process. But it's actually, they're much further than that when they get to the point of being considered ready. They have already contracted, or they've already started working with a third-party assessment organization. These are organizations that are authorized by the federal government in order to sort of audit and go in and assess vendors such as Knightscope or other cloud service providers to actually check all of their security protocols to ensure that they are going to handle the government. They're going to have a secure offering for the government. And not only are they working with one of these third-party assessment organizations in order to be considered ready, they already have this some sort of an assessment that's been reviewed and deemed acceptable by the FedRAMP PMO, which I think is the Program Management Office, Project Management Office, something like that. But then Knightscope actually today announced that they are considered in process now. And so this designation means that they are actively working towards authorization with a federal agency. And that is what we are going to look at today, just a little bit to get a bit more insight to that. And one interesting bit, there's more details on each one of these designations if you look through. This is just documentation the federal government provides. And one of the interesting things that I got here, let me find the exact verbiage that I'm looking for. So it's sort of a restatement of that, but I want to drill this home that because they are in process, there is a partnering agency that's actually working with them to grant an authorization to operate within 12 months. They're trying to do this within 12 months of the in-process designation. So that's important. This sort of gives us a timeline to expect something that's actually independent of the company just saying, hey, we'd really like to get this done in the next year, as they have said in the past. In fact, they said that they thought that it was going to be done by the end of 2022, but I have invested in a number of companies. They make lots of projections and lots of desires, but those don't always come to pass. But this is actually a little more concrete to say, this is the expected timeline once you are at this in-process designation. That's going to be sometime within 12 months, usually, to actually get the authority to operate. So that I thought was fantastic. So you can mark your calendars and say sometime in the next year, hopefully, not just hopefully, but it seems likely that Knightscope will get this authority to operate, authorization to operate. So now we can actually go on the live FedRAMP Marketplace and see what their status is. And so we can go through here. Let's filter down to in-process companies. You can see there's a whole bunch of them. There's 84, I think it was. Yeah, 84 of these companies are in process. And we should be able to scroll down here and find Knightscope. Knightscope, there they are, right there. And so let's open this up. And there are a couple interesting details that I wanted to highlight out of this. Let me make this bigger if this will work. Oop, wrong tab. Notes don't need to be bigger, but this one does need to be bigger if it will work. Well, it's all right. It's not great. I think I'd have a better website here, but let's look at this. So just a couple interesting tidbits here. We see that they are going for an agency authorization type. Now, I didn't go through this, but there's sort of two different ways, or two different processes, I guess they would be. I don't think I'm using the right word here, but there's two ways you can be seeking authorization. You can either be seeking authorization with a particular agency, or you can try to get sort of this blanket authorization that's good for the whole federal government. That is called getting authorization from I think it's the Joint Advisory Board. It's the JAB. They have the acronym JAB in here all over the place. JAB. Does it say what JAB is? JAB. Joint Authorization Board. So that's sort of the board that says if you get that one, you're good across the whole government. You don't have to go to any individual agencies at that point. But so it looks like Knightscope is going for authorization for a particular agency at this moment in time. But again, one of the benefits of FedRAMP, as far as I understand it, is that once they are authorized with one agency, another agency can kind of reuse all the assessments that were done for that first agency. So it's a very, very straightforward process for them to get approved with another or authorized for another agency. That's my understanding. Again, not an expert in this stuff, but that's sort of what I found through some research. And their independent assessor that they're working with is LunarLine, and we'll look into that in just a moment. One other interesting thing that I saw here was their FedRAMP authorization timeline. They actually were denoted as being in process on May 18th, so they're actually 2 weeks late with their PR. I thought that was interesting that they released this today, and the stock went up 24%, and actually this information would have been out there 2 weeks ago, I guess, so interesting. But here we go, and here's one of the things that I was wondering is which agency are they working with for this? And not a surprise if you've been following along, but this is the Department of Veterans Affairs. And I say not a surprise because they announced this almost 2 years ago that they got a contract with the Department of Veterans Affairs. There's a whole blog post about it. You can go read it on Knightscope.com. But this is not a surprise, and I believe that they've had this contract for a while, and they even at one point, I think they may have deployed the robot for some period of time, and maybe that deployment had to get put on pause while they work through this FedRAMP process. I'm not really sure, but that's at least good to see that the process is still moving forward. They still, presumably hold the contract with the Veterans Affairs, and that interest has kept up over time. So I thought that was pretty good. Now, let's go back and look at this assessor real quick for this LunarLine, because I want to call out one thing about them. So let's close this, go back here, and instead of searching for products, we can actually look at the assessors. And real quick, let's sort these assessors by the number of companies that they have assessed. And so we can see here the top company has assessed 108 organizations. There's another that's done 75, 44, 38, and 27. 27 is this LunarLine. So this is the company that Knightscope is working with. And I thought it was interesting, or not really interesting, but it gave me some confidence, I guess I would say, that this LunarLine company knows what they're doing, that they've helped many companies go through this process, and that multiple companies have actually gotten authorized. And yes, I know it is taking a while. It took a while earlier. Federal government needs to make their websites just a tad bit better. Cramped my style here. It has taken forever to load this website. Anyways, what I was getting, here we go. So what I was getting at is that they have gone through this process for many clients. And there's a list here. And you can see that a number of these companies have actually achieved their authorization by working with this independent assessor, with this LunarLine. Here's some authorized. Here's some more companies that have been authorized. Here's Knightscope being listed as in process. Here's more that have been authorized. So, hopefully, not just hopefully, but it sure looks like they know what they're doing, and that it gives me more confidence that Knightscope will actually achieve their authority to operate. So, in closing, or not necessarily closing, but just one more thing to note, is Knightscope themselves, this is in their investor presentation on their website, has disclosed that they have ongoing discussions with many different federal agencies. The Department of Veterans Affairs is one of them, but this is a list of multiple agencies, right? Customs and Border Patrol, Marshal Service, Homeland Security, Department of Justice, Department of Defense, the TSA, FEMA. So there are many agencies they're talking with, and going through this FedRAMP process, I believe, is going to unlock the ability or is going to unlock multiple markets, not just this one contract with the Veterans Affairs. And so, they have listed out potential location types that would be of interest to these federal agencies. You can ponder yourself how many of these there might be and whether Knightscope would be a good fit for all of these or not. But I think there's probably some locations in there that are a really good fit for Knightscope. That is my opinion. That is part of my investing thesis for being long Knightscope. And that is mostly what I wanted to cover today. I do want to call it, I have a prior video where I did talk a little bit about Knightscope and the federal government from March, and I left a link for that in the description below if you are curious to watch that. All right, so that is everything I want to get through tonight. Let me check and see anything on the live chat. Nope, nothing on the live chat tonight. So I'm gonna wrap this up. Just for your information, if you are still watching, I do these videos usually 9, 10, 11 p.m., somewhere in that vicinity, sometimes midnight, Eastern US time, usually Sunday evening through Thursday evening. I don't do videos usually Friday or Saturday. But if you ever want to, feel free to hang around and hop on when I am doing these live. Like I say, I do hop around those times. It's not really predictable. My personal life doesn't really let me be as predictable as I'd like for the channel, but it's usually the time that I'm on here, and I love to have folks on the chat and get some back and forth going, ask some questions. I know I got tons of comments yesterday. I've had a lot of comments recently just on the videos in general, and I am going to try to get back to everybody, but there's actually been quite a lot. And they've been some good questions and good comments so far. So I'm trying to, work through them and give them the proper diligence that they require. So anyways, that is it for today. Thank you very much for watching. Oh, somebody is here. Sorry, I am probably going to mispronounce your name, as I do for almost everybody. Kalia Nazir Monet, that's my attempting, says, thank you, keep up the good work. You are welcome. You are welcome, Kalia. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly. Thank you for watching. Thank you for stopping by. I appreciate it. And yeah, I'm going to wrap it up for tonight. So take care, everybody.